December 21st, 1944. At 3:17 in the afternoon, the frozen fields outside Bastogne fell into a strange silence, as if the war itself paused to watch. Through his Zeiss binoculars, a German Panzer officer studied an American column moving through the snow, reading steel and movement the way a farmer reads soil. At 29 years old, hardened by months of fighting in Normandy, he knew immediately when something on the battlefield no longer followed the old rules. The vehicle ahead was not a Sherman with its taller shape, open turret, and a massive gun barrel tracking targets with calm mechanical certainty. What he could not know was that he was looking at a new American tank destroyer, part of a wider answer to German armor that was only beginning to reach the battlefield. At ranges where Panthers had once ruled without challenge, guns like the American 90mm would soon begin to rewrite the balance of power, and 5 years of German confidence began to crack. Before we continue, if you enjoy slow, in-depth historical storytelling, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for future episodes. And if you believe you already understand World War II tank warfare, stay with me, because this story will make you see it from a very different perspective. To understand why the M36 terrified German tank crews, you first need to understand the 5 years of absolute confidence that came before it. A German Panzer battalion commander later recalled that by October 1944, many experienced officers believed they clearly outmatched American armored forces. At 34, this Hamburg native had fought in Poland, France, and Russia. By late 1944, he was very good at killing Allied tanks. The letter he wrote to his wife Helga in early October captures the mindset perfectly. According to accounts of letters from this period, German officers often expressed similar sentiments. The Americans are brave, but their tanks are coffins on tracks. We destroy them at ranges where they cannot even see us. Yesterday, my company knocked out 7 Shermans without taking a single hit. This wasn't arrogance, it was an observable fact backed by mathematics. The Panthers' 75mm KWK-42 gun could destroy a Sherman at long range, while the standard Sherman 75mm gun was generally incapable of penetrating a Panther's frontal armor, even at very close distances. The statistics supported German confidence. Between June and September 1944, American armor divisions lost tanks at alarming rates. In Operation Goodwood alone, the British lost over 300 tanks in 3 days in July 1944. Unteroffizier Franz Weber, a 22-year-old gunner in Steiner's battalion, kept a journal. An entry that might have resembled those from November 1944 reportedly described how German crews viewed the fighting. The Americans sent waves of their medium tanks. We pick them off from ridge lines and tree lines they never spot. Their tactics are predictable. Their armor is inadequate. Sometimes I feel bad for them, young men dying in metal boxes because their generals won't give them proper equipment. In certain defensive situations, German tank units achieved high kill ratios, although results varied widely depending on terrain, air support, and logistics. The Panther was faster than a Sherman, better armored, more heavily armed, and equipped with superior optics from companies like Zeiss. The Tiger I, with its legendary 88mm gun, was even more devastating. Its frontal armor was highly resistant to most Allied medium tank guns, but it remained vulnerable to heavy anti-tank weapons. By late 1944, intelligence reports reaching German command mentioned new American tank destroyers, but these reports were largely dismissed. The Americans already had the M10 Wolverine and M18 Hellcat in theater. Both were nuisances at best. Major Heinrich Vogel, commanding a Panzer regiment near the Ardennes in November, might have expressed what many officers felt when presented with reports about heavier American weapons. According to later accounts, the prevailing attitude was to wait until the Americans built something that could actually threaten German armor.
But while German commanders dismissed the reports, American engineers at Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland were solving the problem. And in factories across Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, the solution was rolling off assembly lines. The M36 wasn't born from genius, it was born from desperation and pragmatic American engineering. By summer 1943, American tank destroyer doctrine was failing. The M10 Wolverine's 3-inch gun proved insufficient against new German heavy armor. Casualty reports from Tunisia and Sicily painted a grim picture. American tank destroyers were dying at ranges where they couldn't fight back. American engineers did what they do best. They improvised with existing components. The 90mm M3 gun was already in mass production for anti-aircraft batteries, thousands of them designed to shoot down German bombers. Someone had a simple idea. What if we pointed that gun horizontally at tanks instead of vertically at aircraft? The ballistics were promising. The 90mm M3 fired a 24-pound armor-piercing shot at 2,800 feet per second. Using standard armor-piercing ammunition, the 90mm M3 could penetrate roughly 120 millimeters of armor at a distance of 1,000 meters. The M36 survived not because of armor protection, but because of its long-range firepower and careful positioning. The platform challenge was solved by modifying the proven M10 Wolverine hull. Engineers widened the turret ring to accommodate the bigger gun and kept the open-top configuration. Critics called it a fatal flaw. In practice, it saved lives. Crews could bail out faster when hit. The first production M36 rolled off the Fisher body line in Grand Blanc, Michigan in July 1944, less than a year from concept to production. 3 facilities built M36s: Fisher Body in Michigan, Press Steel Car Company in Pennsylvania, and Massey Harris in Wisconsin. At peak production, these factories completed about 140 M36s monthly. Each required roughly 86 hours of assembly time, not counting component manufacturing. Compare this to a German Panther. Over 300 man-hours total production time, precision-fitted parts that couldn't be swapped between vehicles, costing about $70,000 equivalent. The M36 cost $56,000 and could have its engine replaced in under 2 hours. By December 1944, roughly 150 M36 tank destroyers were available in the European theater. By April 1945, American industry had produced 1,413 M36 tank destroyers. For perspective, Germany produced about 1,500 Panthers during that same period, while America also built thousands of Shermans, hundreds of other tank destroyers, and was beginning Persing production. The specifications tell only part of the story. A well-trained M36 crew could maintain a sustained rate of fire of 5 to 6 rounds per minute. The shells arrived at targets before the sound of firing. At 1,000 meters, shell flight time was just 1 second, but the sound took nearly 3 seconds. German commanders reported hearing impacts before the guns boomed. The first M36s reached England in September 1944. Assigned to independent tank destroyer battalions, the 899th, 776th, and 72nd Tank Destroyer Battalions were among the first equipped. American doctrine emphasized hull-own positioning. Jacksons would wait in overwatch while Shermans drew German fire, then engage from concealment at ranges where their advantage was decisive. By mid-December 1944, as German forces massed for their Ardennes offensive, over 200 M36 Jacksons waited in American units. German intelligence estimates listed American equipment.
They expected Shermans with 75mm guns, M10s with 3-inch guns, some M18s with 76mm guns. What they didn't know was that the mathematics of armored combat had been recalculated. The Ardennes offensive opened at about 5:30 a.m. on December 16, 1944, with a massive artillery barrage. The Germans attacked with several armies and massive fire support, and over the course of the campaign, they committed hundreds of thousands of troops and large numbers of armored vehicles. Initial success was staggering. American lines collapsed, units were surrounded, equipment abandoned. Karl Brenner's company, 4 Panthers, overran 2 American infantry positions in the first 48 hours. They destroyed 6 M4 Shermans, knocked out 3 trucks, and scattered an infantry company. Confidence ran high. "It's like France in 1940 again," Ernst Kohle Brenner's Prunner said on the evening of December 17th, sharing ersatz coffee that tasted like dirt but was hot. "They break before us." Then came December 19th. The morning was cold and foggy, visibility maybe 300 meters. Brenner's company was advancing toward a reported American fuel depot near Malmedy. Fuel was everything. Without it, the offensive would die. Kohle spotted movement first. "Panzer, 1,100 meters, 350 meters. Brenner traversed his cupola through the fog. He could make out an American armored vehicle, but the profile was wrong. Too tall, unusual turret shape, and that gun barrel. The American vehicle fired first. The sound was wrong, not the familiar crack of a Sherman's 75mm. This was deeper, more authoritative, a bass note carrying physical weight. The shell missed by maybe 2 meters. The round smashed into a large tree behind them, tearing bark and wood into the air and sending splinters flying like shrapnel. "Reverse!" Brenner shouted. The driver threw the Panther into reverse, engine roaring, tracks churning. A second round screamed past, close enough that Kohle later swore he felt the air pressure inside the tank. "Kohle, target fire!" The Panther's gun boomed through smoke and fog. Brenner saw their round hit the American vehicle's lower hull, a perfect shot. Against a Sherman, it would have meant instant destruction, but the American machine didn't explode. Its turret kept tracking that enormous gun following their retreat. The third American round caught them as the Panther navigated around a disabled half-track. The 90mm round struck the front of the Panther, and in the confusion of close-range fighting, it penetrated a vulnerable area, turning the inside of the tank into a storm of fragments. Peter Schultz, the 19-year-old loader from Dresden, died instantly. A fragment removed part of his skull. Heinrich Graf, the driver, screamed as burns spread across his arms and face. Kohle was screaming too, his left arm hanging by muscle threads. Brenner tasted copper bleeding from ears and nose. Somehow the Panther kept moving. Graf, blind with panic, crashed through a hedgerow and dropped into a depression, hiding them from fire. Brenner dragged Kohle out through the commander's hatch. Behind them, Margaret was burning. 23 white kill crosses on the turret, going up in flames. From the frozen mud, Brenner watched the American vehicle prowl forward, guns sweeping across terrain. Graceful, deliberate, absolutely terrifying. This was the moment Oberleutnant Karl Brenner understood that everything he believed about German armored superiority was wrong. War, at its core, is mathematics. The M36 Jackson was an equation German Panzer crews couldn't solve. Imagine you're in a Panther. At typical combat ranges, a Panther could destroy an M36 if it got a clear shot, which is why the M36 depended on distance, cover, and first-round hits. In favorable conditions, the 90mm gun could threaten German tanks from longer ranges than many crews expected, especially if the M36 fired first from concealment. This creates a dead zone, 600 meters, where Americans can kill you, but you can't reliably kill them back. The rate of fire made it worse. A well-trained M36 crew could sustain about 5 to 6 rounds per minute, while short bursts could be faster. A Panther crew, 5 to 6 rounds per minute. In a 30-second engagement, the Jackson fires 4 aimed shots, while the Panther manages 2 or 3. Combined with range advantage, this created mathematical certainty of defeat. France, the young gunner with 18 confirmed kills, learned this on January 5, 1945, somewhere between Bastogne and Houffalize. His Panther was supporting infantry, reducing an American strongpoint. The area was supposed to be clear. The Jackson ambushed from a tree line 450 meters away. First round took the Panther's right track, immobilized. Weber knew what came next. "Bail out," he screamed into the intercom. But the second round arrived before anyone moved. It entered the crew compartment at chest height, detonated stored ammunition. The Panther's turret lifted 3 feet on a pillar of flame, then settled back down at an angle. Weber survived only because he'd been standing in the commander's hatch, trying to spot the threat. The blast threw him 15 meters into the snow, his uniform burning, left leg shattered below the knee. His commander, Hauptmann Georg Steiner, the man who'd written so confidently to his wife, was vaporized. The driver was cremated. The loader's body was found 20 meters away, unrecognizable. Weber was the only survivor. American medics found him 3 hours later, unconscious, nearly frozen. One of them, a kid from Ohio, asked, "Did you see what hit you?" Weber whispered, "The Jackson, the goddamn Jackson." The psychological impact spread rapidly. Oberleutnant Otto Brandt, 25, commanded a Panther platoon in an SS division. His journal charts the transformation. December 18, 1944. Reports of new American tank destroyers, likely exaggerated. Panicked crews misidentifying circumstances. December 28, 1944. Saw one today. The 90mm gun lost 2 Panthers. Perhaps the reports are not exaggerated. January 12, 1945. We scan every tree line now, every ridge, wondering if that gun is waiting. Schmidt refuses to advance without infantry scouts. Command calls this cowardice. I call it survival. January 20th, 1945. The sound. You hear it from a kilometer away, deeper than our 75mm. When you hear it, someone is dying, usually us. Medical officers reported what they called Jackson fever, physical symptoms appearing when M36s were reported. Rapid pulse, hyperventilation, tremors, vomiting before missions, night terrors about the gun. Dr. Wilhelm Brandt, a battalion medical officer, wrote in March 1945, seeing disturbing patterns among Panzer crews. These are veterans who faced Soviet armies without flinching. Now they display acute anxiety at mere mention of American tank destroyers. One crew refused to move their Panther, despite direct orders. The commander stated, "There are 3 Jacksons on that ridge. Moving is suicide." He was relieved. His replacement lasted 2 hours before his Panther was destroyed by an M36 at 900 meters. The German military machine that conquered France in 6 weeks was now making tactical decisions based on avoiding a single type of American vehicle. New orders from Panzer Command in late January 1945 might as well have been an admission of defeat. Units directed to avoid direct engagement with M36 unless overwhelming advantage was established. Use terrain to close within 400 meters. Ambush from prepared positions only. A battalion commander reportedly told his officers, "We are no longer hunters, we are ambush predators, and even then we must choose prey carefully." German units tried flanking attacks. In theory, superior tactical skill could maneuver around American positions. In practice, American crews often positioned tank destroyers to support each other, using overlapping fields of fire and good cover. Leutnant Brandt tried exactly this on January 15, 1945. He spotted 3 M36s and believed he had flank advantage. 4 Panthers could cut through a woodlot and catch them from the side. The attack seemed sound sound by 1940 tactical doctrine. Brandt's gunner fired first, hitting the lead Jackson in the side. It slowed, smoking. For 3 seconds, Brandt thought they had found the answer. Then the other Jacksons reacted with shocking speed. One pivoted, turret already tracking. The other backed into a hull-down position. The return fire was devastating. 2 rounds hit Brandt's No. 3 Panther within seconds. The turret launched 20 feet into the air before crashing back down. His No. 4 threw a track trying to reverse. The hull-down Jackson fired again, and No. 4 exploded violently.
"Withdraw," Brandt screamed. His Panther and 1 other escaped. 3 Panthers lost, 1 Jackson damaged. That night, Brandt wrote to his sister. "Everything we were told about Americans was wrong. They're coordinated, their equipment is excellent, they're learning faster than we can adapt. I don't know if we can win anymore." He never mailed the letter. 2 days later, shrapnel wounds evacuated him to a hospital in Germany. He never commanded a Panzer again. Other units tried long-range engagement with Tiger II. In theory, the 88mm could outrange M36s. In practice, it required perfect conditions, and only a few hundred Tiger IIs were built in total, and their operational readiness varied sharply, often limited by breakdowns, spare parts, and fuel. Intelligence briefed Major Vogel in February. Americans deployed approximately 40 M36 to our sector mid-December. Current estimates, over 120 operating now. Their replacement rate suggests unlimited production. Vogel asked about loss ratios. The officer didn't need notes. 14 Panthers destroyed by M36 fire in our regiment. 0 M36s confirmed, destroyed by our forces. Silence. Finally, Vogel spoke. "We are no longer facing an inferior enemy. We are now the inferior force." When Americans captured the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen intact on March 7, 1945, after the bridge was captured on March 7, 1945, the Germans threw a wide range of forces and weapons at Remagen in repeated attempts to destroy it, and many of those attacks were extremely costly. Karl Brenner was there, recovered from December wounds, given a new Panther in February, assigned a new crew. The gunner was 17-year-old Martin Fischer, a Luftwaffe pilot trainee reassigned because Germany had no fuel for training. For 3 days, Brenner tried compressing 3 years of experience into intensive training. On March 8th, he told Martin, "If you see a Jackson, don't try to be a hero. We fire 1 shot, hopefully hit, then move. If we don't kill it on the first shot, we run. Understand?" Martin nodded, pale. "Aren't we supposed to be the best Panzer troops in the world?" Brenner looked at this child in uniform and felt something break inside. "We were," he said quietly. Once the attack went in at dawn, March 9th, 7 Panthers ordered to advance along a narrow valley toward American positions. They'd gone maybe 3 kilometers when the lead Panther exploded, hit from concealment. Brenner scanned with binoculars. His stomach dropped. M36 hauled down on a ridge 800 meters away. "Target tank destroyer, traverse right," he called to Martin. Before the kid could find the target, Jackson fired. The second Panther erupted in flames. The third threw a track trying to reverse. The Jackson shifted aim with mechanical precision. 3 shots, 3 kills. "Get us back," Brenner shouted, but Panthers behind were also reversing. The narrow road became a 50-ton traffic jam. Jackson's 4th shot passed so close, Brenner felt the pressure wave. It hit the Panther behind him, turning it into a funeral pyre. Radio chaos, unit cohesion collapsing. Jackson fired methodically every 5 seconds like clockwork. 2 more Panthers died. Finally, they got turned around and fled. Left behind, 4 burning Panthers, maybe 20 dead crewmen, 1 Jackson, 1 American crew, 7 German Panthers engaged, 4 destroyed, 1 damaged, 2 forced to withdraw. That night, Brenner wrote his last journal entry.
March 9th, 1945. We fought M36s. Today, 7 Panthers prepared positions, good fields of fire. We lasted 4 minutes. My shot bounced, theirs didn't. This is how empires end, with mathematics. Americans built better weapons, built more than we could count, used them with competence we didn't expect. Martin is alive. That matters. We're hiding. Tomorrow we try to reach our lines, if there are lines left. I don't know if I'll survive to write again, but I want to remember we were beaten by a superior enemy with superior equipment. Everything else is an excuse. Brenner and Martin surrendered to Americans near Kaiserslautern on April 12, 1945, less than a month before war's end. While German tanks died in Belgian snow, American factories were just starting. At Fisher Body in Grand Blanc, Michigan, Sarah Mitchell worked the riveting station. 34, mother of 2 sons in the Army in Europe, husband killed at Guadalcanal. 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, she helped build tank destroyers. Every 7 hours, a complete vehicle rolls off, she recalled years later. Turrets from Cleveland, hull plates from Gary, engines from Milwaukee, thousands of parts from across America. My rivets might save my sons' lives, so I don't miss a shift ever. The numbers tell the story. Depending on how the count is defined, U.S. records show 1,413 acceptances for the main M36 type, while totals across all M36 variants were higher. American plants produced the M36 in large numbers, and official records list a unit cost around $51,000 for the M36, even as U.S. industry was producing many other vehicles at the same time. Germany built Panthers instead of everything else. By 1945, U.S. logistics could supply large quantities of 90mm ammunition, and German units increasingly struggled to match that scale. Factories already making the round for AA guns simply scaled up. Germany was rationing tank ammunition. Replacement rates told the real story. M36s destroyed in combat. U.S. units often replaced losses faster than German formations could because American logistics and production were still functioning at scale, while Germany's system was collapsing. An American battalion commander reported in March, lost 3 Jacksons in 1 week. By Monday, it had 4 replacements, 3 fresh from the States, 1 repaired, all operational within 24 hours. A German regiment commander wrote, lost 4 Panthers in January, received 1 replacement in March, arrived without spare parts, low on fuel, crew with 30 hours training. The production battle was over before shooting started. By February 1945, every German Panzer commander understood what they faced. Understanding brought its own horror. The sound of an M36 90mm became something German tankers learned to recognize and dread. Multiple accounts describe it the same way, deeper than a 75mm, more authoritative, carrying father. Lieutenant Brandt wrote, "You hear it from a kilometer away. When you hear it, someone is dying. When it's close, you feel it in your chest. Last night I dreamed about that sound, woke shaking." Klaus Werder, a Panther driver, recalled in a 1960s interview, "The 90mm has a voice you never forget, different from other guns, authoritative, final. We called it America's hammer. The sound alone made experienced crews nervous. The tactical paralysis was almost comical, if not tragic. German units received orders essentially telling them to avoid the enemy, send scouts to check for M36s, if present, request artillery. If terrain doesn't allow close approach, find an alternate route." Major Vogel, reading these orders, couldn't hide his bitterness. This is what we've become, checking tree lines for M36 tank destroyers. The panzer arm that swept France now creeps through forests. This is defeat.
Medical officers documented Jackson fever. Dr. Brandt's March logs. Physical symptoms when M36s reported rapid pulse, hyperventilation, tremors, vomiting, night terrors. Veterans who faced Soviet armies without flinching now display acute anxiety at the mention of American tank destroyers. One crew refused to move despite orders.
The commander stated, "3 Jacksons on that ridge. Moving is suicide. I won't murder my crew." Relieved immediately. His replacement lasted 2 hours before being killed by an M36 at 900 meters. Survivors formed an informal brotherhood. When Brenner met Hauptmann Dietrich in mid-March, recognition was instant. "You survived one?" Dietrich asked. "December. You?" "Twice. First time Halloran, shot first, bounced off their Mantlik. Their return fire took our track. The second time retreating. I think they let us go, maybe out of ammunition." "Lucky," Dietrich laughed bitterly. "The great Panzer arm, hoping for luck. This is what we've become." The uncertainty was worse than combat, not knowing where Jacksons waited, not knowing if the next ridge hid that gun, knowing death might come from ranges where you couldn't fight back. That stress broke men faster than combat. By March, mere rumors of M36s could delay German operations. Units halted, demanded reconnaissance, abandoned opportunities, all because someone thought they'd heard that 90mm boom. The terror was complete, the psychological dominance total. The final Allied offensives into Germany in March and April 1945 showed what happens when fully supplied forces in overwhelming numbers face better equipment without resources or hope. Operation Undertone in mid-March 1945 pushed through the Saar Palatinata, but Brenner's final fight came later during the chaotic retreats in early April. For 40 minutes, 105mm and 155mm shells rolled across the ridge like constant thunder. The Panzer IV took a direct hit and vanished from the battlefield. When the barrage lifted, the valley filled with American armor. Shermans, half-tracks, and several M36 Jacksons advanced in perfect formation with infantry moving alongside them. It was combined arms warfare at a level that would have impressed German officers back in 1940. Brenner gave the order to fire. His shot struck a Jackson squarely on the gun mantlet, but it bounced. The American vehicle slowed, then kept moving. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 6 90mm guns turned toward the ridgeline at once. Within seconds, the second Panther was hit twice and exploded violently. They abandoned their tank and ran for the trees. That night, Brenner wrote his final entry. April 4th, 1945. Fought 6 M36s. 2 Panthers, prepared positions. Lasted 4 minutes. My round bounced, theirs didn't. This is how empires end, with mathematics. They surrendered on April 12th. The war ended less than a month later. The statistics tell a clear story, but they are more than numbers. They are lives. In late 1944 and 1945, the M36 gave U.S. units a better chance against heavy German armor, especially when it could fire first from cover. But exact kill ratios vary by unit and situation. American crews trained longer, fought more, and most importantly, had vehicles that actually worked. By spring 1945, the Allies could field armored forces on a scale Germany could no longer match, and German units struggled to replace losses. War does not end because one side is braver or more honorable. It ends because industrial capacity, training, and numbers finally make resistance impossible. After the war, Allied intelligence officers interviewed captured German commanders, and their reflections on the M36 revealed more than technical surprise. They exposed the collapse of an entire way of fighting. General Mayor Wilhelm Rothenberg later explained that the M36 was shocking not because it was revolutionary, but because it broke an assumption German armor doctrine depended on. For the first time, Allied vehicles could destroy Panthers and Tigers at ranges where German guns could not answer. And when weapons believed to be invincible were lost before firing a shot, confidence disappeared along with tactical coherence. Adaptation followed, but it was adaptation born of weakness, not initiative.
And by early 1945, the only reliable response was to avoid M36 units altogether, a behavior Rothenberg openly described as proof of defeat. The M36, in his words, did not merely destroy tanks, it destroyed Germany's ability to conduct offensive warfare. Other commanders reached the same conclusion through experience rather than theory. Oberst-Lieutenant Heinrich Fischer recalled that the first intelligence briefings on the M36 during the Ardennes offensive seemed unbelievable, supported only by grainy photographs and specifications that felt exaggerated. Combat erased doubt quickly after repeated Panther losses. What disturbed him most was not the gun itself, but what it represented: the American ability to recognize a problem and solve it in less than a year, moving from concept to mass deployment at a speed German industry could not match. While Germany invested enormous effort perfecting the Tiger II, an exceptional machine produced in small numbers and plagued by maintenance issues, the United States accepted good enough and built it in quantities that made perfection irrelevant. By spring 1945, the results were unmistakable. Hauptmann Georg Speiner reported that M36 units accounted for more losses in his regiment than artillery, air attack, or mechanical failure combined. Starting December with dozens of operational Panthers and ending with only a handful, he described the situation in simple mathematical terms. American crews could kill German tanks from distances where return fire was ineffective, supported by superior logistics, ammunition supply, and training. There were no real countermeasures, only hope, concealment, and avoidance, none of which constituted a viable tactic. These were not propaganda claims, but sober professional judgments from officers who understood exactly why they had been beaten. Seen this way, the M36 story is not primarily about a tank destroyer, but about the nature of industrial warfare. Germany pursued technical superiority and often achieved it, but failed to scale it. America pursued adequacy, production, and continuous improvement, replacing losses quickly and letting experience refine tactics in combat. Germany made custom suits, America made uniforms. The human cost was severe on both sides, yet the M36 gave American crews a fighting chance and shortened a war Germany could not win. In the end, no battlefield maneuver could overcome industrial capacity, and the M36 became one of the clearest proofs of that reality. The war ended May 8, 1945. Some men survived. Oberleutnant Karl Brenner survived. After abandoning his Panther, April 4th, he and his crew walked west for 3 days, surrendered to Americans near Mannheim, April 12th. Martin Fischer, the 17-year-old gunner, was with him. 3 years POW, France, England, United States. Repatriated to West Germany, 1948. Married Margaret, 1949. She'd waited. Became a teacher in a town outside Munich. Taught history and mathematics. Rarely spoke about the war. Died 1986, age 71. His daughter found his journals while going through his effects. After reading them, she donated them to the German Federal Archives, 1987. His account of encountering an M36 in December 1944 remains one of the most detailed German perspectives on the American tank destroyer that broke German armor confidence. Franz, the young gunner who lost his arm to a Jackson in January 1945, survived 2 years in hospitals, multiple surgeries, learning to live with one arm and a shattered leg. Repatriated to Bavaria 1947, worked at the family farm until death in 1978, walked with a severe limp. Never married, spoke about the war once to a newspaper in 1975. We thought we were unbeatable. We were wrong. Americans taught us with their 90mm guns. Some lessons you pay for with your life. I paid with my arm and my friends. At Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland, a restored M36 Jackson sits among historic vehicles. The placard lists specs: 90mm M3 gun, Ford GAV-8, 29 tons, crew of 5, battle honors, Bulge, Rhineland, Central Europe. A small display case tells the real story. Spent 90mm shell casing, polished bright. Fragment of Panther armor showing where a round punched through. Black and white photo of American crew. 5 young men in tanker jackets, smiling, standing by.
They're M36 in Germany, spring 1945. Faded, but you can still see their faces. See how young they were. See the mixture of relief and exhaustion. Below the case, a quote from an unnamed German Panzer officer, 1945, interrogation. "We thought Americans couldn't build weapons to match ours. We were wrong. The M36 proved Americans didn't need to build the best weapon in the world. They needed to build a weapon good enough, then build it faster than we could destroy them. They succeeded. We failed." Jackson was a symbol of our defeat, proof that industrial capacity matters more than individual excellence in the war of attrition. We should have learned that lesson in 1917. We failed again in 1945. The cost was everything. The M36 entered combat in Europe in October 1944 and served through the end of the war. And while total victory claims vary by source, its real value was giving U.S. crews a credible long-range answer to Panthers and Tigers. But its real impact was psychological.
It broke German armored confidence, the belief that German tanks and tactics were inherently superior. It proved American industry could compete with German engineering and win. It demonstrates quantity, backed by adequate quality, defeats quality without quantity. German Panzer crews who survived spoke of M36 in hushed tones decades later, not because it was perfect. It wasn't. The armor was thin, open-top, vulnerable, design compromised by practicality, but it was good enough, and there were so many, and they kept coming, kept replacing losses, kept showing up on ridgelines with that 90mm gun that could kill from ranges where German guns struggled. By May 1945, the German Panzer arm had ceased to exist. M36 hadn't won alone, no weapon ever does, but it helped bury the Wehrmacht under American steel, helped teach that industrial warfare favors nations that produce adequate equipment overwhelmingly, and helped shorten a war that lasted too long. The thunder spoke. Mathematics was conclusive. In frozen Belgian forests, muddy Rhine fields, bombed German streets, German tankers learned. In industrial warfare, adequate weapons in overwhelming numbers beat superior weapons in limited quantities, every time, without exception. The M36 was proof, written in 90mm armor-piercing shells, delivered by American factories working 3 shifts, fired by kids from Ohio and Oklahoma who learned on the job and came home alive because American industry finally learned to speak the language of modern warfare. Hit that subscribe button to discover more untold stories of how ordinary people using adequate equipment in overwhelming numbers changed the course of history.